December the 16th is not just the day that many people traditionally end the working year and head to the coast for their holidays. This public holiday has its roots in significant moments in our history. In 1838, the Battle of Mapungubwe, formerly Blood River, was fought between the Voortrekkers and the Zulus. Also on this date, in 1961, the ANC's armed wing Umkhonto weSizwe was formed. And then, of course, in our democracy, this public holiday, formerly called Dingaan's Day and then Day of the Vow, was renamed the Day of Reconciliation. With a diverse and divisive history, many problems still facing us today on the road to reconciliation. Let's discuss this now with Xolelwa Kashe-Katiya of the Mapungubwe Institute of Strategic Reflection. Now, that organization is a part of the Indlulamithi SA Scenarios 2030. Xolelwa, thank you very much for your time. It's interesting that there are many people involved in this Indlulamithi SA Scenarios 2030 organization, because you're looking 10 years ahead and you're looking at different scenarios for South Africa in 10 years' time, depending on how well we manage the social cohesion project. Why is social cohesion so crucial to our success generally as a nation?
Good evening, Sally, and thank you for inviting me. Well, you ask about why social cohesion is important for this country. It's because we come from a very divided past. And social cohesion actually informed the establishment of the Indlulamithi scenarios, wherein we sought to answer the question on whether South Africa has the potential to attain social cohesion by 2030. So leaving us with 10 more years, even though we started about 3 years ago. So what we came out with were 3 different pathways towards social cohesion. One is the bourgeois, a very divided nation. Everything privatized, the elites on one side and the poor on the other side. The second pathway that we could potentially walk is that which we call Gwara Gwara. You'll notice these are named after dance moves, but Gwara Gwara in itself, it contains a storyline which is about a state of lawlessness and a state of disrepair and hopelessness by citizens. And then the last one is called Naila Walk. And in Naila Walk, we see a nation that can walk together, walking in step and finding reconciliation and therefore moving closer towards social cohesion. So that was the main impetus, because without social cohesion, we cannot move past these old wounds that even the president referred to earlier today. So that needs to be attended to.
I'm wondering which path we are on according to the scenarios. Is it clear?
It is very clear. 2 years ago, we launched a barometer, the Indlulamithi Social Cohesion Barometer, to measure the drift of the country towards any of these 3 scenarios. Last year, we were in Gwara Gwara, which is that state of lawlessness, hopelessness, and abuse of, low-scale war that is gendered, and so on. This year, we further released an additional set of results, and we were even deeper in Gwara Gwara. But what was new this year is that we also did a provincial barometer, because we understood that the provinces will not experience this journey in a similar fashion. So we found that they differed. I mean, there's various results that we have.
So I'm wondering, this year has been such a completely wild and unpredictable year. Has COVID-19, and we always talk about how COVID-19 has highlighted the divisions within our society, both between rich and poor, and I think it's heightened stress levels in our country. So do you think that we are further down the Gwara Gwara road of lawlessness, or do you think that we're pulling back a little, especially because we are seeing some attempts to arrest those suspected of corruption?
Well, we believe that the pull towards Gwara Gwara is informed by inequality. If you look at our data, you can see, we have all sorts of expressions of it. You can go to our website. But the strongest pull is that of inequality, which is the drivers. We've got 3 drivers to any of these storylines. And that's that of social inequality. So it's inequality in all its facets, whether it's gender inequality, racial inequality, provincial inequality, or even inequality in terms of networks and so on. The second driver is that of leadership, institutional leadership. We've seen how leadership has failed during the times of COVID, but not only state leadership, it's also been leadership in terms of business. There has been some efforts, but you're still not seeing enough. You're not seeing enough of that activist business approach, especially with the understanding of where we come from. The last driver is that of resentment, resistance, and reconciliation, which is very relevant for today, and especially among young people, wherein we find that these old wounds are festering, and it's so easy to trigger conflict.
Yeah, and it's such a good point you make, because if we look at what happened in Senegal with the death and the murder of Brendan Horner, and that led to, polarization, really, and real fear that there would be clashes outside the court. It is remarkable that it didn't happen. It didn't degenerate into violence, as many feared. Does that suggest that we are ultimately a country that is looking for a solution, looking for cohesion? And I think it was the President who said earlier today that, yes, there's still a lot of racism, but there are also remarkable examples of people crossing the racial divide and coming together. Do you think that ultimately there's a positive message out of all of this?
I mean, obviously everyone wants to find each other. However, as long as we continue with these silent non-agreements, especially around race, wherein we cannot have honest conversations about our inequality. We cannot have honest conversations around where we come from. I mean, today alone is so contested. There are those in society who still celebrate it as the day of the vow, and we know that celebrates the defeat of Dingaan at that Battle of Ngqomi. There are those who would celebrate it as a symbol of resistance, because that's when Umkhonto weSizwe was formed. But also in terms of reconciliation, that's when the TRC was officially launched in 1995. However, we're still not finding each other. Even though we talk about reconciliation, we have these things that we skirt around. We have also another element to it is this wherein citizens have no sense of belonging. Whether you are the elite or you find that sections of the racial groupings would feel that they do not belong. Others would say, I'm not African enough. Others would say, well, I'm not rich enough to be recognized or to benefit. So there are all these things, and the youth are challenging that. And that's where you see these ruptures, these moments of rupture where there's volatility and polarization. Somehow it gets neutralized, but there's so many of them. And now you find that it's almost every day. Sometimes we name them service delivery protests, or even with the fallism movement. But these are symptoms of this resentment that we have in terms of our efforts towards reconciliation. And there's also elements of resistance to reconcile.
Yeah, you're raising such important points, and I think the only answer really is to be open and to listen, and to have an open heart to try and find each other through these difficult times. Thank you very much for your time. Xolelwa Kashe-Katiya, she's of the Mapungubwe Institute of Strategic Reflection.